Begin the assembly by joining the rear right suspension arm 2, 33D to the rear right knuckle 33B with 1 GM screw. Check the position of the parts in the picture and fit the rear right suspension link 33C over the highlighted tab on the right rear knuckle 33B. Join the two parts with 1 OM screw. Insert the upper pivot of the rear right knuckle 33B into the end of the rear right upper control arm 33A as shown in the picture. Secure the assembly with 1 mm screw. Connect the rear right brake plate 33M to the rear right knuckle 33B with 2 QM screws. Connect the rear right brake disc 1, 33I to the rear right brake disc 2, 33J, first removing the protective backing from the adhesive. Then mount the brake disc assembly onto the rear right knuckle 33B. Insert the 3 pins on the rear right hub 33K into the 3 highlighted holes in the brake disc 1, 33I. Secure the brake discs to the rear right knuckle 33B with the washer 33O and 1 NM screw. Connect one end of the rear right brake hose 33L to the pin on the rear right brake caliper 33H. Use 2 CP screws to connect the rear right brake caliper 33H through the 2 highlighted holes in the rear right knuckle 33B. Retrieve the rear axle assembly from the previous issue. Insert the lower pivot on the rear right knuckle 33B into the hole in the rear right lower control arm 29E. And connect the 2 parts with 1 mm screw. Then connect the free end of the rear right brake hose 33L to the highlighted pin on the rear right brake hose connector 29J. Insert both ends of the rear right upper control arm 33A into the front right suspension wishbone bracket 29I and the rear right suspension wishbone bracket 29G. Secure both ends of the control arm with 2 Rm screws. Connect the rear right suspension arm 33D to the rear right suspension center bracket 28D with 1 Rm screw. Continue the assembly by connecting the rear right front suspension bracket 33P to the right side of the rear axle 28A with 1 BM screw. Connect the rear right suspension link 33C to the rear right front suspension bracket 33P with 1 Rm screw. Insert the rear right driveshaft outer joint 33F and the rear right driveshaft joint 33N onto the axle of the rear right driveshaft 33E. Then, fit the rear right driveshaft outer joint 33F into the rear right knuckle 33B and the rear right driveshaft joint 33N onto the highlighted rear differential dust cover 31G. Place the rear right suspension arm 33G onto the right bracket of the right plate reinforcement 29C and the rear axle 28A. Secure the rear right suspension arm 33G with 2 BM screws. Without fixing them yet, align the rear shock absorber rods 30C with the slots in the rear left wheel arch 25A and the rear right wheel arch 26A. Pull hose 20E and hose 20F through the inside of the rectangular tab on the rear axle plate 29A. Then fit each hose to the corresponding rear brake hose connector 29J. Carefully attach to the chassis by gradually tightening the 6 BM screws. To finish the assembly, use 2 BM screws to secure the rear shock absorber shafts to the rear left wheel arch 25A and the rear right wheel arch 26A. Place the tire 34A in a container of hot water for a few minutes to make it a little more flexible. Check the pattern of the tread on the tire 34A in the image. Then fit the inner rim 34D and the outer rim 34B to the tire, as shown in the main picture. The wheel in the detail picture has been turned around after the rims have been fitted. Check the orientation of the wheel in the picture, then fit the wheel spokes 34C over the outer rim 34B. Flip the wheel and connect the wheel spokes 34C to the inner rim 34D with 5 ABM screws. Place the tire 35A in a container of hot water for a few minutes to make it a little more flexible. Check the pattern of the tread on the tire 35A in the image. Then fit the inner rim 35D and the outer rim 35B to the tire, as shown in the main picture. The wheel in the detail picture has been turned around after the rims have been fitted. Check the orientation of the wheel in the picture, then fit the wheel spokes 35C over the outer rim 35B. Flip the wheel and connect the wheel spokes 35C to the inner rim 35D with 5 ABM screws.